Hi, I'm Robert with the Centrist Inc., and this is Delusion Nation. When we talk about delusions, at what point did the most bizarre, discognitive ideas and behavior become acceptable or routine to not just the radical far left, as one might expect, but actually thrust into the mainstream? So, how does a tiny single digit minority rally the misguided support for violent BLM and Antifa riots? Or for men dressing in women's gowns with hideous makeup and fright wigs, performing sexually in front of children, and for sexual indoctrination in elementary and middle schools? So, when did we start seeing badly drawn hammer and sickle emblems and all cops are bastards spray painted on police precincts and federal courthouses? College students rallying in support of Hamas terrorists? Well, when did we grow thick hides as to no longer feel outrage when mobs of hyper violent thugs and terrorists burn, loot, and murder with seeming impunity? Liberal district attorneys backed by radical socialists practically dismantle our justice system. A sitting president unilaterally and unlawfully opens the floodgates at our borders to millions of unvetted illegals, including terrorists from all over the world. When did things go off the cliff? The seeding of chaos might appear to be intentional. So now, admittedly, this multi-pronged rampage against decency and societal norms is a lot to unpack. Indeed, it is an onslaught difficult to even comprehend. But should it be difficult to counteract? In the U.S. general elections, those registered voters who would normally vote their conscience from a moderate position and vote out radical leftists only show up to the polls in roughly half the numbers they should. This is unacceptable, and there is no excuse for such irresponsibility. It is critical to our survival as a civilization that moderate left and right-leaning voters get off the couch and vote from a moral center. So here are a couple of examples of how radical ideology can be so dangerous and insidious. So Ryan Carson, a social justice activist, was stabbed to death in a random attack on October 2nd, 2023. His girlfriend, who was a BLM supporter seen wearing a t-shirt proclaiming ACAB, or all cops are bastards, and displaying a license plate invoking Karl Marx, has allegedly refused to describe the African-American attacker, citing concerns over negative racial stereotype. Delusional. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida recently signed a law that would provide for life in prison and in some cases the death penalty for the crime of child rape. Most moderates would agree a child rapist deserves the most severe punishment possible, right? But astonishingly, some LGBTQ advocates and trans activists publicly railed against the law. The implication of this outcry is painfully obvious. They seem to want to protect trans child rapists while unfairly entangling LGB people who would never ever think of children in that way. So, what is the mental disconnect with this? Delusional. Perhaps the problem is rooted in a pervasive decline in IQ across the board. Empirical statistics show a measurable decline in human cognition over the past several decades. Studies are ongoing. High school students reading at third grade level cannot even attempt critical thinking, so smartphones might as well be glued to their hands permanently. These cannot be the architects of anything but a bleak future for civilization. Declining intelligence would certainly explain the idea that the earth is flat or that there are Nazis and fascists everywhere. Antifa certainly believe this. At the same time, they invent fallacies like systemic racism or transgenocide. The delusional leftists literally encourage mass murder and genocide against Jews. Racism at its horrific worst. While examples of rampant stupidity like that can be mocked, and individuals and groups can be vilified for their delusions, a more sinister and, in fact, deadly delusion in the form of Islamic extremism, emerging over centuries, is continuing to manifest. There is currently open call for global jihad. Delusional leftists are actually supporting terrorists who behead non-Muslims. Beheading, which now apparently includes babies and toddlers. The burning alive of innocent civilians by savage fanatics is too horrible to countenance, but there's the video. The overarching concerns with all the preceding examples are, 1, what is fueling the delusions? And 2, what to do to counteract the effects of this sickness. So for one thing, voting can help remove radicals from office. Now that seems maybe sound a little bit weak, but contesting and defeating Marxists and anti-police activists at every level of government can help. Contributing to moderate, responsible legislators or as a volunteer to register moderate, responsible voters can help. Now, just because violent criminals seem to operate unopposed does not mean the rest of us should sit idly by and watch, or just talk about it ad nauseum. Ask around and find out how many of your contemporaries failed to vote in the last election and help get them to the polls next time around. Know the issues and the social mores and leanings of the candidates. We have the tools. We just need to use the democratic process to eliminate the threat. Treat even the local elections as if your life depends on it, because it does. Get involved in conducting research into the background, criminal or otherwise, of your local Marxists, Antifa, drag queens, far-left school teachers, supporters of Hamas, socialists in the city council, and other dangerous political actors and their sycophants. So use that information to interdict and contain them. I'm reminded of an old friend who used to say, "You can't argue with a sick mind, so don't try." Well, this was meant to be humorous at the time. Its portent is now quite relevant. So get mad, get your hands dirty. Moral outrage accomplishes nothing if not put to good use. We can't expect to defeat evil and ignorance, convert zealots, or derail the crazy train by just lashing out on social media. But using the weight of sheer numbers, education, and the democratic process, united we can make a difference. I'm Robert with the Centrist Inc., and this is Delusion Nation.